Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is John Kranz with Compass Games. I want to welcome you to this episode number 42 of Compass Games Live. Today is Thursday, October 8th, 2020. I hope you're all having a great week, and we've got another action-packed venue in store for you tonight. Of course, I'm excited to be announcing two new pre-order titles in a little bit. Also, just to let you know quickly, we have our next shipping release, which we'll talk about here in a moment, or the most recent release actually is Dawn's Early Light. So we've just shipped that in the last few weeks. And then just below that, we have an Attrition of Souls. So Attrition of Souls, we'll see our release schedule here in a moment. That's going to be our next release coming up. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then we have a special guest. We have Dan Bullock, who is the designer of No Motherland Without. We're going to be talking about that game with Dan Bullock, the designer, tonight, and I'm really looking forward to introducing Dan to everybody here, and so we can answer your questions about the game and give you a nice little overview of the game from the designer perspective. But first, as always, I do want to quickly show you our release schedule. So let's go ahead and just spend a moment looking at that. So from our home page, you'll see, as I mentioned, an Attrition of Souls is listed, and we have added a specific date for October. So actually 1 week from today, next Thursday, the 15th, we'll be shipping an Attrition of Souls. Again, that's a strategic, it's a very quick playing, light, fast playing World War I strategic level game. It's a crossover game is how I would look at it. You can find out more about it, obviously online, but that's going to be shipping exactly 1 week from now. And then it was great having Bill Thomas on again for our town hall meeting last week. And you all helped Bill, sort of guided Bill on what title he wanted to release, let's say early from the warehouse to close out the year. And we settled on the Conquistadors. And Conquistadors is, we're going to talk about that a little bit more here in a moment, but that is now slated as a December release. And as we have mentioned in the last 2 or 3 town hall sessions, the reason we have a pause in our schedule is for all our domestic side shipping, we changed to a new vendor for higher quality, thicker counters for all our games, including Paper Wars issues. But the time to proof and get with the printer to get it quite to where we want it, to get that system online and rolling, just basically took us longer than we anticipated, and we want to get it right. So we've put a pause on the American side of production to give the printer more time. And the good news is things are rolling forward, and you're going to see an extremely active schedule starting with the new year in January, with a lot of titles that are going to be definitely coming out each month for Q1. So a few things I want to mention as always is on the left column, you'll see here we have our orange yellowish box. That's our newsletter. If you just put in your email address and just hit the checkbox and hit subscribe, we're going to hit your mailbox only once a week. We're not going to barrage you or bombard you with a bunch of emails, but it gives us a chance to let you know the latest that's going on at Compass Games, and I'll show you that here in a moment. And then at the bottom right corner, you'll see me sort of waving. That's the Talk to Us. That's the location where you can just contact us with any questions or comments you have. I try to respond within 24 hours, and it's a great way for us to get some questions from you that we can then broadcast during our town hall sessions with Bill Thomas every 2 weeks. So I really appreciate everybody. It's been actually probably the most busy in the past 3 weeks, getting a few questions and interactions from customers every day. So we really appreciate you reaching out to us. We try to make it easy for you just to click on that button where you see me there. And that's all it takes. So pretty straightforward. Now, regarding the newsletter, just to show you that, we just sent it out this morning. So this is the new newsletter that just went out. Hopefully you received it already. Of course, the big news, and I'll talk about this later in the broadcast, is we are spotlighting our 2020 holiday catalog, and we'll talk more about that later tonight. But as you can see here, the newsletter provides the download links, etc., just like we have on our homepage now. We have a link where you can download the catalog, and we provide more information about it. So that's really our headline news from Compass Games this week is we're now helping spread the word by digitizing our catalog to get it out there as a PDF. Also, other big news is we've got the Conquistadors. It's been on pre-order for some time, but as we do with select titles and what we call our crossover games, we like to also reach out to wider audience through Kickstarter. So we have the Kickstarter page that's now started. So if you haven't pre-ordered the game and you're interested in it, just click on the image as I'm doing here, and you'll see here we have the the Kickstarter for Conquistadors. The video actually is a playthrough by the designer John Southard with his son, showing you how the game plays, just the basic game. But it's nonetheless a great introduction through a video of the game. We'll have more videos in the future, and we appreciate the 65 backers we've already received through Kickstarter. Also worth mentioning is if you scroll down a little bit further, I just want to point this out because it's always helpful. People always ask about this, as boy, I'd sure like to see what the rules are like for this game. So you can check out the full rules here. If you actually click on that, it launches a full interactive PDF. You can go through the PDF, you can see the rules, look at it. It's a little bit hidden, but in the top left, there's a little download link. That's where you get that PDF download so you can print it out. So again, we try to make it very easy and accessible for everybody as far as getting more information about Conquistador. And then just back to our newsletter for a moment. We've mentioned the Kickstarter. This is, again, our next release, and you can see the date for October 15th, next Thursday, Attrition of Souls. We provide a little bit of information about the game and link to our product page where you can pre-order the game still at a discount. And also still available at a discount is our most recent release, Dawn's Early Light. And it's really great to see. We've seen some really positive comments. The initial comments have been really favorable about, oh boy, we really like the quality of these components, the mounted map, just overall the production quality. We've been really getting a lot of thumbs up from everybody. So we're really, it's really gracious to hear that from you, to let us know how we're doing. Of course, here we are right now. We always like to talk about what our next broadcast is, and that is this one right here, episode 42. And then, of course, we had our town hall session with Bill Thomas, where, again, we talked about the Conquistadors release in December. We answered a lot of your questions, talked about our release schedule, and all the titles we'll be releasing starting in Q1. So again, we always like to ask everybody, please join us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube channel. Again, that's what you'll see in the newsletter, and we only do it once a week, but we try to always keep the news fresh for you to let you know what's happening. And again, we'll talk about the catalog here in a little bit, in a moment. But what I'd like to do at this point is, as I mentioned right here, so in our last town hall meeting, I took notice of what you were all saying about No Motherland Without. That game actually came up a lot about when Bill Thomas was asking you what game would you like to see released next, because several games are ready to ship, as Bill shared. No Motherland Without is one of those titles where we could sort of flag as an early ship. So we're going to get this game out actually very early next year. So I thought the timing couldn't be better to introduce Dan Bullock, the designer of the game. So Dan, welcome to this, I don't know what to call this. We've got some really weird inside jokes, just to let you know. Something about Applebee's, and there's a long story about where
Nice.
I need to broadcast live from Applebee's one day. People are bugging me about that. It's a long, ugly story. But well, how are you doing tonight? We're really excited to have you here. Yeah, great. So we're
hello from Milwaukee.
Milwaukee,
It's
so
awesome.
Central Time. So we're in the same time zone, and hopefully the weather's not too hot or not too cold for you right now.
Not too bad.
Not too
We
bad.
don't complain until it drops pretty low. So
Okay, great. Probably a good environment to do some game design. You got a nice little, I like your little pad setup area you got there. It looks very cool. But we want to cut to the chase, so we're gonna jump into it. So
Sure.
what we want to talk about is this baby right here. So this is your design. For those that are uninitiated, it is No Motherland Without, the North Korea in Crisis and the Cold War. So I know it's covering quite a bit of a period that we want to cover. So maybe while I'm just showing the box cover here, you can give us a quick elevator pitch about what the game in general covers, and just in short words, how you would describe the game, what it's covering.
Sure. I guess my elevator pitch would be it's a 2-player card-driven game covering the Cold War between the West and DPRK from 1953 till present. So
that's a long boy. That covers quite a period. So that's is that 2 or 3 generations? I think that's at least.
it's 3 generations in terms of this conflict. And,
Great. Well, we're really excited about it, and I believe you said it was card driven, correct?
Yes.
Okay, in a moment, I want you to, we're going to definitely want to show the cards. I want to let everybody know, here I am on the product page. And we only had we actually had a earlier version draft of the box cover. So the front cover has been updated actually. And most importantly, we've added more components. So to learn more about the game, you can see here the map. I'll show the map separately here in a second. I think Dan's going to show us a few game cards just in person that he's holding.
Yeah.
But it's a really good overview. If everybody jumps over to the Compass page, we'll talk about this game here a little bit. But this gives you a really good overview about the game, the card-driven system. Of course, we're going to go deeper into it as well. I'd like to start with the map, actually. So I want to show everybody here. I'm going to zoom in on the map. So let's just take ourselves away out of the picture for a moment. So this is the map that comes with the game. Obviously, North Korea is the focal point, Dan. Could you tell us what we're seeing here? And then maybe we can drill down deeper into certain segments and maybe tying the map and the different elements here on the game board. There's a lot of stuff here on this game board. So we've got strategic reserve, standards of living, global opinion. So maybe you can just briefly run through what players can expect a game of No Motherland Without will feel like.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of kind of complex geography for this particular design because you're trying to model kind of the level of infrastructure as it gets built up from post-Korean War to present. Because kind of at the onset of 1953, like the infrastructure has just been obliterated throughout every urban center within North Korea. So you have like a clear map, but you're basically building it up over the course of the game. And then you've got the defector map, which reflects the routes that are taken by defectors who are leaving the country.
Yep, that's the inset map right here. Yep.
Yeah, right there. And then you've got a generation map, which is a little bit of an abstract version of the sort of geography of trying to break up how you would model surveillance within communities throughout North Korea. So you have like elites, you've got people who are active dissidents, you've got people who are trying to leave the country, and their proximity to other elites and folks on that generation map is how you simulate some of the tensions for those folks who are making that journey. So that's kind of the weirdness that is.
That's a lot going. This looks very engaging, and Michael's already weighing in on Facebook saying reminds him of Rogue State, which he enjoys. So this is looking pretty good. He likes all the different elements. I noticed there's different color borders on the generation map. Again, I haven't read the rules or anything.
Yeah.
I'm coming in blind like the viewers here, but could you share a little bit about what the color coding means?
So the color coding actually coincides with different eras of cards. And then the third generation is actually the one that coincides with the final turn of the game. So the Juche era, which covers Kim Il-sung's reign, so from 53 to essentially like 88, even though Il-sung died in like 92, like you've got this generation of like 12 spaces, and they simulate those 48 cards for that group. And then the Song era is kind of the military first, Kim Jong-il era of the game, and so that those generation spaces coincide with those event cards.
Okay.
And there's actually a event that when you see the event card the second time, that's what triggers Kim Jong-il's death.
Oh,
because
okay.
The succession for Kim Il-sung was for Kim Jong-il was 14 years, so it was very gradual and very planned and structured. But for Kim Jong-un, it was like very rough because 2008 was about the time that they, within the Politburo, they tried to make his transition known that like Kim Jong-un was going to be the heir apparent. So to simulate this within the game, we modeled it by just having like this event that the second time you see the event card and it triggers, that's when it signifies the next turn will be the final turn. That's when we move to that final generation of the game. And because the game has like this kind of elastic length, it kind of builds tension because even when you're doing really well, you never know exactly how long you need to be doing well for. So that's how the generation map breaks down.
Right. And then, so this is 2-player, and I think, how would you say for solo playability, how would that work if somebody wanted to just put the game down with the different card hands? How would that look for a solo?
So for solitaire, I think that it's very strong because a lot of my issues with both solitaire games is that, especially with card-driven games, you don't want there to be information that's hidden in the 2-player version is suddenly available to the player who's playing solitaire in order to operate a flowchart. And then I think the second concern is you don't want players spending more time trying to figure out how an AI works or a bot than spending time on their own decisions. So for the solitaire system in this game, the idea was that you would play as DPRK. You would not see the cards that are in the AI hand. They basically reveal in the order that you step in, and it's just completely random.
Okay, nice.
But unlike the two-player version, you don't automatically get your events to trigger when your opponent plays them. You need to have enough saved up in your DPRK strategic reserves in order to trigger them. It costs you 3 points to spend it. So it's always a thing where you're holding out for certain events, but you never know exactly when they're going to occur. And as such, it allows us to have an AI that I think is pretty tough, while at the same time, you're not spending a lot of time with their decisions and trying to make the most of their hand. You still have plenty of tension, and that's the main thing we want to preserve for that. Because I don't like games where it's just like the tension isn't there in a single player experience, and you don't want it to be just, I'm going to roll a bucket of dice to resolve. This game is tough because I'll never roll this many sixes or whatever. So I think that for the solitaire in this, it's fairly robust. Its emphasis is on player decisions, and the AI does have a flowchart, but it's something you'll internalize after one full game turn.
Oh, great.
You'll
so it becomes natural, basically.
Exactly.
So for the DPRK player, what's the objective? What are you really trying to accomplish? Like during your turn with the cards, what are the types of actions? What are the things you're doing that's going to help you ensure victory in the game? Hopefully.
You're trying to prevent the absolute collapse of your regime. So all the anxieties that you would have about that are modeled within the game. If you're worried about elites that might rise up and be, potential heir apparents, you can purge them if you see fit. You're basically trying to curb the flow of defectors leaving the country. You're trying to keep the ration level from falling. You're keeping an eye on a lot of multiple things, and as well as global opinion. So
I see the global opinion, which seems to have a pretty big focus, at least as far as the map goes. That looks like it's a pretty important. Is that sort of guiding how progress in the game is going? Is that sort of a master higher level status of how you're doing, or is it just one of many other tracks?
I think for the primary focus for players is probably going to be prestige and DPRK. So that's how the regime is reflected within DPRK, like what their standing is there.
Okay.
So it's not in the global community. They don't really care about their standing in the global community. They want to.
Well, that's
their
a good
threats
point.
Are existential, so they need to make sure that they're still around to manage that later. But the global opinion is interesting because that's like another element of every single event. It's not all events, but a lot of events will have. I could probably show you like a version of that here.
Okay, well, I'm going to zoom in on you then. Let me switch over to you so we can really do this right. So I'm going to just go to you here so you can. Oh, there we go. Yep.
So I apologize for the glare here, but on event cards, some of them will have a global opinion indicator, like on the side.
Okay, so I see an arrow to the. Is that the arrow that's pointing to the
arrow? And that's which direction the global opinion is going to shift.
And that coincides with the map. So the box is on the map, so it's facing left. Okay.
Correct. So when those events are triggered, even when the event like this one is a DPRK favorable event, this is a missile launch, so they definitely want this event to happen. But the idea is that even when you're playing beneficial events, sometimes they'll manifest with an unwanted global opinion shift against you. And the global opinion isn't a simple track that has pain on the extreme ends, but the idea is that each status point on the global opinion track that favors one player or the other will give you some sort of advantage over your opponent.
Gotcha.
Whether that's like a modifier to the die roll, whether it's the ability to ignore one bad event, or even pass for a turn without playing a card and wait, which gives the West like an opportunity to play both first and last in a given turn. So there's very serious benefits, and the benefits are cumulative. So the farther you shift over in global opinion either direction, the more benefits you'll have as you go.
So it's like a momentum. Is that like a momentum sort of as you're shifting more over? It just you're more entrenched, or you're just a stronger position because you're further over on this. on that
Yeah, you're in a
continuum?
stronger position. I think the difference for the two-player experiences, too, among other things, is that the West has means of shifting global opinion toward them a bit more because they can make appeals to the global community, whereas the DPRK is a lot more limited in that way. So for them, they have to be very cautious about the things that they're going to shift, or once it goes to the extreme, they suddenly don't care as much about how global opinion is going to shift against them. It's like, we've got patrons. We're fine with it being where it is. I mean, we're not going to improve it. So
Gotcha.
we're just going to continue launching missiles and doing what we do.
And then
So,
just some feedback. So Tom D over on YouTube, thanks for joining us tonight, Tom. He says it sounds really promising, especially what you covered about the solo play already. That even though it's got cards, you've already sort of done it in a way that's going to help make solo play enjoyable. So kudos from Tom D on that. Another question I had for you is, so let's flip the script. We're in the 2-player game. I'm the West. So I think I have a better idea now with MPKR. I don't care about global opinion. You've got these uprisings. We've got to stamp out. We've got all these different activities going on that we've got to keep the cap on. We're going to put influence on that. I think that's my takeaway from your elevator pitch. So what's the elevator pitch? What am I doing as part of the West in the game to put pressure on them? What are my actions?
So
what am I doing?
Is the West, a lot of the pressure that you're exerting on them has to do with it manifests as the impact of some of the sanctions that are being placed, some of the things you can do diplomatically. So you are pressing for example, like trying to curb their nuclear program. A lot of the actions that you take might create an uptick in the amount of defections that are happening from the country. And the defections are important. I've heard some people who were looking at the game but hadn't played it before had kind of mentioned that why are we monitoring defections that much, or what is the impact of defections in this conflict? And to put it simply, if there was a sudden surge in defection from the country, it would trigger like a human rights crisis, the likes of which some third party is going to step in and find they need to intervene. And that is something that the DPRK does not want. So that's why they already go to such great lengths to make sure that they're trying to do what they can to repatriate defectors when they can, keep, just so they don't get any kind of static on that front. And because there's also means of exerting pressure internally, right? Like with things like economic pressure, pressure for like kind of, fuel imports, all kinds of things like that. And that's triggered by these things, these outage markers that you're showing right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on them. Maybe you can explain some of these markers in the interplay or what the purpose of these markers are. So we'll go ahead and zoom in so everybody can see that pretty well. Yep, there you go.
So right after, so as of 53, when the game starts, DPRK is trying to build their infrastructure up again. And the West is able to place outage markers in different provinces or cities throughout the DPRK map. Any place an outage marker goes, infrastructure can't be placed there for the turn. If there's already infrastructure there, there's kind of a freeze on it. And this is important also because there's a certain level of adjacency that's required in order to place infrastructure. And the exception with outages is that the last place you can place an outage marker on any given turn is Pyongyang. The lights stay on in Pyongyang as much as possible.
That makes sense.
You can do outages pretty much everywhere else. And so the infrastructure is kind of threaded into some of the other mechanics because as the game continues into the Songin era, then you start having missile test events that will occur. And the missile test events are a way for the DPRK to increase their prestige within the country slowly until eventually, if they're at the maxed out position on prestige in DPRK and they do a successful missile test, they can win automatically before the game goes to a final scoring situation. But that is directly linked to their infrastructure. So there's like a secret kind of ballistic missile advancement track, and the place that you're able to invest cards in to successfully launch these missiles. But you need to have your infrastructure at a certain level in order to make those missile tests possible to succeed.
Yeah, I noticed you have infrastructure markers here at the bottom row that are numbered 1 through 3, 1, 2, 3. So those are those levels that you're talking about. And then I just want to do this zoomed in focus just because I could show the full counter sheet for the game, single counter sheet, but it's just not legible on screen. It's just too small. But I'll go ahead and if it will the internet connection will cooperate. It's not drawing up. I'll see if it will come back here in a second, then we can show it. But I mean, people can visit the website and they can pull it up easily. That's for sure. So, so if you were, so just your own personal taste for the game, do you have a preference which side you like to play when you're playtesting development? Is there, when you're in the game, is there a certain side you just enjoy playing more? I'm just curious about that.
So I like games that are really tense. Like I like a lot of tension. I like to feel kind of sick while I'm playing games. Generally.
Yeah, everybody, if you buy the game, you get to experience seasickness. We'll include a anti-seasickness pill in the box. That sounds like a really good selling point, doesn't it?
It's a little different. But generally speaking, I find that when I'm playing with other people, some people don't like that role. So I'd say if you like the hot seat type of role, DPRK might be for you because it's a very stressful position to play. And if you like needling your friends while sitting back a little bit more removed and being able to calmly kind of deal with your handful of awful events and everything, maybe the West would be a little bit more palatable.
So some different personality traits seem to play well for certain sides here. I'm getting the sneaking suspicion here. Very interesting game. And some people commented they like it's interesting how the game effects seem to sort of meld together, that they just don't stand alone, but things build on each other, it sounds like. And Luis over on Facebook, thanks for joining us, Luis. He said, it looks like an interesting North Korea simulator. I don't know if that's how you would you classify this as a North Korea simulator? Is that one way you would?
Probably not, but it's the closest thing you're going to get for a while.
Closest thing with limited intelligence of what we have. It's the closest we're going to get, huh? Well, let me ask you this question. Let's try something different. So, so while you were doing the development and everything, because the game's final, the rules can be downloaded from our website. Did you find anything you decided to either tweak or cut out of the game? So as you were progressing with development of the game, getting feedback, I'm wondering if is there any particular feedback you got that made you take action and make changes to the game system at all?
I have, there's always these things when you're doing like an early test, like where someone will play it one time and then they'll mention a slightly better idea. And you're just like, I got to blow up like this whole thing. And I had a ballistic missile research is like what you're trying to advance to make your missile test event succeed. However, initially it was a kind of track that was public, which is so not what the ballistic missile research should be for a game about North Korea. So we played it once at this public track, and the developer, Andrew Carlson, played it one time, and he goes, I hate that, and pointed at it. And then initially, and then we were just kind of spitballing, and immediately came up with a system to keep it blind, but something you could audit within, within the game. So from there, I think once we had that hidden, then it sort of had this backwards effect of we went in reverse and just I want so much of this game to be hidden. I want there to be so much uncertainty. And that's kind of how the tension starts sort of ramping up and manifesting it.
Let's and I invite everybody to, if you have any questions for Dan, please feel free to post your questions if you're joining us on YouTube or Facebook tonight. So Martin does have a question for you, Dan. Do nuclear weapons figure into the game? I know you mentioned the missile system, you mentioned the missile track, and there is card play towards that, and that's going to help with prestige, I believe you mentioned. But can you talk a little bit more about specific systems or activities around technology that might have an impact modeled in the game?
So the way the ballistic missile research is modeled in the game is you are actually placing cards on a track that's along the side of the board. So there's a numbered track there. And where you can place the cards that you're tucking toward that research is they're always tucked face down, so your opponent will never know exactly what your level of technology is at any given point. But when you're tucking a card, it corresponds with the number of third level, which is the highest level of infrastructure on the map. So if you've got, say four cities or provinces with, level 3 infrastructure, that means when you tuck a card, it's tucked in that 4 position. But the idea is that each missile test event has a required level of BMR or ballistic missile research you need in order to trigger it. And then in addition to that, when you fire off that event, it will then increase your prestige, but not without cost. So as you see on these cards,
Oh, let me
This
zoom in.
one,
Yeah, let me go to you
yeah,
here so we can. Okay, there was a card. This
sure.
okay. Yep.
So you can see there's the required ballistic missile research level.
So that's the
And
level.
then
What do the levels go up to? Is 4 the
the
highest?
level goes up to 6, and it's
6?
based on the different kind of types of missiles. So there's short range missiles and the Kwangmyosong missiles, which are like kind of shorter range missiles. And then you've got the stuff like three-stage rockets like Hwasong 14 and things like that that are like go up to level 6. So there's 2 level 4s, 1 level 5, and 1 level 6. And then we'll have a couple of optional cards that you can put in for to kind of help you meter out the difficulty when you're playing against an opponent who maybe doesn't know the game as well as you.
Right.
I think that's kind of a nice way of kind of giving yourself handicaps or balancing out the game a little bit. But the idea is that when you trigger these events, they also shift global opinion in favor of the West. So even though it's giving you a thing that you might desperately want, it's going to do so with cost because it's giving your opponent an advantage. But if they're already favored enough on global opinion, you might not care that much and you might just want to fire off that event. So
okay, gotcha. Hey Dan, could you do me a favor? Could you pick a card
sure.
out of there and then just explain? I know there's not too many numbers or values on there, but I don't know if like the colors have any meaning in the game. Could you sort of do a walkthrough of what the elements of a typical game card are for everybody? Just pick one you like.
So let me so here's a good option. So this one is a neutral event, Pyongyang speed, and it refers to basically the speed with which infrastructure and improvements were able to be built during the Reconstruction period, up until like 56, 57. And this is actually what the neutral events look like. So they have both flags. I'm always pointing on the wrong side, sorry.
Yep.
So both flags at the top and a gray band. And then underneath it has 2 different effects depending on which power plays it. So Pyongyang speed has a double meaning because for DPRK, it meant being able to mobilize a workforce and very quickly build infrastructure. But outside of DPRK, it meant that a lot of these improvements in infrastructure were very poor quality and would crumble and fall apart very, very fast. So depending on who plays it, they'll get either the ability to build a very basic level of infrastructure very quickly on the map, or it'll allow them to remove improvements that have been placed previously.
Is the can you remind me what that numeric value? There's a number 2 on
sure.
there.
So there's a number between 1 and 3 on every single card, and that's the number of activity points you get when you play a card for activities instead of
the event. Instead of the event. Okay, so that's a standard. That's your standard, card driven.
So it's pretty standard, but unlike a lot of other card driven games, there's a menu of actions that are specific to both the West and DPRK that they take, and neither of those activities are shared by the other player. So you have a different menu of actions that you do as either player, and you can mix and match as many activity types as you want on your turn as long as you have the points to spend on them. So that's the importance of reserves and those points that you store in between turns, because it'll allow you to spend them later on to do a kind of super powered action. And then as far as event types, in addition to there being events that favor either side and then kind of neutral that can be played both ways, there are 2 different types of events other than the single fire events. So there are events that are legacy events, and those are kind of like capabilities that hang out in the game. They reflect personalities or some kind of institution that stays in play. And generally speaking, DPRK player has more capabilities or legacy events that they can put in play than the West does until the Sogin era, and then it flips a little bit. And then the other event type is enduring events. So enduring events are all event types are marked at the top. So if they don't have an event type at the top, they're the single fire event that happens only once. But enduring events, if we can go to the map for a second, I can kind of show you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, let me switch over there. So let me switch to the map to get it ready here. Yep, here we go. So let's go back to the map for a second for you. There you go, Dan.
Yeah, so at the very bottom right of the map, you'll see an enduring events track.
Yep.
So anytime an enduring event is played, instead of having an immediate effect, it gets placed to the first clear space on that enduring events track. As long as it is on that track, it has like kind of a renewed thing. So it'll either enhance one of your activities when it's performed, or do something else that kind of impacts the game as long as it's on that track. And you'll keep playing those enduring events to the track, and then if the track is completely full, you just rotate the one that's in third spot off into the discard, and the next one will then occupy the first space.
First one again.
So as a result, there's this weird thing where normally when you're playing a game, it's very like that's card driven. It's very clear cut in terms of this is a bad event. This one's a dog. I don't want to play it. This one's great. I want this in my coffin one day when I die. Like there's events that are kind of great, but based off of what enduring events and legacy events are already in play, there might be effects that stack in a certain way that make certain events more palatable based on the game state at a given time. And as a result, it can make that kind of like metric of how you judge what events are good and strong and weak, like that changes from game to game.
This is probably a good time for me to mention here because I believe I saw this earlier. If you go to the product page, you can download the rules for the game. So I just want to point out for everybody that if you're interested in what we've been talking about today, please check out the rules. They'll give you a good overview. Here's a great map and board layout. I probably should have used this for our broadcast. Now that I see this too late, I should have used this early on when I showed the map. This would have been perfect. But no, we want to show you a pure map, what the pure map looks like. So definitely here, everything's clearly spelled out with the labels, so easy to get into. Like you said, after one turn, you said it becomes pretty natural. You got the key terms and concepts down, sequence of play. Yeah, it looks great. Here's the information on the event card. See, I could have showed this, but it's much better when you talk through the card than just referring to the rules, right? So that's why I asked you to do that. And this is interesting. I was wondering about the map. The way the map looked, there's this sort of a gap, but here I see you're actually laying down the cards on the side. So that's an interesting effect because when I show the map again, there is sort of an effect of these little 1 through 6 areas. That's quite interesting. Now this is an earlier we got a black and white, I think, rendition of the same map here, obviously.
It's just so I could highlight my arrows, I think.
Yeah, very, very effective. Yeah, that looks yellow and red to me. And then the counters are highlighted as well. Their color on there. So that's a good idea. And then the aid cards that you mentioned, activities. So again, lots of good stuff in here. So definitely, I just want to point out to everybody that, again, the rules are available. You just got to go to the tab for rules, errata, and downloads on the product page. I don't want you to miss that because that's going to help you learn more about this game, and it will be shipping early next year, so it's not going to be long before the game's ready. Got a few questions for you real quickly.
Sure.
Actually, I'm going to start with the first question. So you remind me a little bit of another interview I did with a gentleman by the name of Christopher Davis. He's like all of 30-something years old, very young. So either you look very young or, it looks like I feel like there's a changing of the guards with designers that for Compass, from my perspective, more and more interviews I'm doing, the people are getting younger and younger.
It's just a clean-shaven, youthful appearance. I don't know how that's maintained.
It must be our designer academy that we have in a undisclosed location where we take young children and we turn them into designers. But on a serious note, what made you jump from doing games? Maybe share with us what kind of game playing you did when you got into the hobby and how you entered into this designer mode of, no, I want to go do something on something. So walk us through that life journey for you so far.
Well, I had actually initially thought that I was just going to develop. That was kind of the plan.
Yeah.
But I think most of the games that I like playing are historical games and consims and war games and things like that. And most of the groups that I play with do not play those types of games at all, so I have to trick them. And that's part of the way I was able to do that.
Crossover game.
Crossover, exactly. So it was always an interesting tension, like when I wanted to play games that I actually like, I'm like flying out to Expo and, going out to like San Diego. I'm like going all over the place to find people to play, like those games with. And I don't have that many players that I play with ordinarily here in Milwaukee that dig that type of thing. But when I'm designing something, then I always have to design it with in mind. I need to trick people that I normally play with into playing something that's like a concept or traditional war game. So it needs to have like the ability to, all the constraints of war gamers are typically not big on. Like it needs to be played in a single night. It needs to you're basically trying to boil everything down to its essence. And while I understand why, you can play something over 8 to 12 hours and then be like, but the storm clouds are gathering, like the drama, like I like the long play. But you design with the intention of trying to grab this group of people and maybe bring them over, to the bandwagon and check out something that they wouldn't ordinarily play. But yeah, so that was kind of my initial...
I think that's really helpful, actually, as a designer. It really probably helps drive your focus of what the scope of and footprint of a game's going to be. when you're
Yeah,
considering game length, scope of the game, complexity of the game, the type of interactions that might appeal to crossover gamers. So that actually sounds like maybe that's something good that helps shape you as a designer in a way.
I think it helped for sure.
And this will be your first published design, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's going to be a couple of them coming out around the same time.
One thing about our group is we're not shy about helping young designers come up with new games. So I'll go right there here. So let me find that here. So we've got some great comments in here. So we're going to go to some comments. Let me just pull them up here. Here's a good one. I like this one from Brian on Facebook. He hopes he didn't have to go to North Korea personally to do any research for this game. So maybe we should ask you that.
No. Maybe it's my bias, but I feel like you get a lot of sources, but you're sort of triangulating what you think the truth might be.
Yeah.
So as a result, a lot of people ask like what Korean sources you use. Like, well, some of the best ones were actually, like American, Russian, and Chinese, which is tough if you want to, if you're multilingual, it's a really great gig, but otherwise you're looking for like translated sources and things like that. Right. So I didn't have a visit in me.
Okay, but it's interesting. You just mentioned Russia and China for sources, and somebody had a question on a different track, which is, do the North Korea groups interact with China and Russia for technology in the game? Is there any...
So some of the events reflect that. Also, East Germany, like you've got like a lot of places where they're reaching out to, kind of other states for that kind of help. But China and Russia specifically. So one of the ideas that we had early in the design, let's see if I can pull it out here. So during the game, you've got, if you're DPRK, you've got two cards, aid from Beijing and an aid from the Kremlin card. And these cards allow you to they're basically simulating the aid that those two states poured into DPRK during Reconstruction. And then you have these two aid cards throughout the entire early phase of the game, the Juche era. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But after Kim Jong-il comes into power, the Soviet Union collapses, raid from the Kremlin goes to the wayside, and now you only have the benefit of the Chinese aid. Yeah. So they were a means of you being able to kind of discard an event you don't like and play it for those points. But unlike something like the China card and Twilight Struggle or whatever, it doesn't pass to the other player. It's just unavailable. And then the only thing that activates it is certain other events that will occur. And other events that might come up, be them Western or DPRK events, may make that aid unavailable even if you haven't used it. So it's never a thing as simple as having the discipline to hold on to that aid until you absolutely need it. Sometimes you need to spend it like a drunken sailor just because it's there. So it makes it a little bit of an interesting dynamic because you get to simulate that aid, but it's still influenced by other things that are happening diplomatically.
Yeah, no, that's a great explanation. I think I'm sure E4 Airman who asked that question, that's a great answer. So here are some comments for you as well, Dan, I want to share with you from folks joining us tonight. So Darren is asking again, we like to push designers into staying designers, sure. Right? So Darren's helping fill that obligation by asking, have you thought of using this system for Iran?
So Darren, I have a game that's going to be coming up on Kickstarter in January that takes place in Iran already. And I think my first thought was that it was going to use this system. It's just totally different. John and I were talking before the broadcast, you get these ideas that you can port over
to a different.
You read one book and it just screws everything up. You're just that won't work. That won't work. And then the more you delve in, you're no, this is different. So
when's your Kickstarter going to launch for Iran? Do you know the date?
I think it's just going to be late January. I'm working on the rule book now. That's a product of the COVID era.
Yeah. Hey, well, that's good. You got a lot of ideas. We can tell you've got some ideas swimming in your head. That's pretty clear to all of us. Not only all the ideas you've got into this one design, it sounds like you've fully baked a lot of different ideas and multi-dimensional factors that interact with each other,
sure.
Which is great. So why not take that to other design ideas? And then here, Maurice Fitzgerald, good neighbor of mine here, says you've got some interesting designs headed our way. I don't know if you've interviewed with Mo already. Mo's got a great channel. Mo's Game Table and everything else he does. And if you haven't, hopefully you will do it soon. But he knows, he's aware of your work. So we got some people rooting for you for sure. We got Tom D over on YouTube. says, sounds really good. Just agreeing with Mo's comments that your ideas, they just sound really good, what you've sort of demonstrated tonight.
Awesome.
So getting some really positive words. Mo, again, just saying, yeah, thumbs up for an interesting card-driven game implementation that you've done here in North Korea. North Korea has been all over the news, especially the last few years. So definitely a very timely board game to be doing, that's for sure. And again, somebody mentions again, doubles down on the solo play. How it's quite important for a lot of people. I always usually ask about solo playability for any guest I have, because everybody's always wondering about solo play. Would you say, this is a good comment by Board Game Bloke over on YouTube channel. So do you
I
look
would never
for
doubt
fresh,
Tim's judgment.
yeah, do you look for fresh card mechanics in CDGs? Would you say that was something you had as an objective for this design, or did anything come out of it that you consider fresh or a new wrinkle, so to speak?
So it's interesting because a lot of the people I test with, and then some of the folks, like the guy who developed this game with me, like they're very big on a lot of the kind of, card games like Magic the Gathering, Netrunner, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the way they'll break your game, like they'll break it real good if there's any
So
problem.
let's mention the developer's name just to give him
Andrew Carlson. And
Andrew Carlson. I want to make sure we give him credit. So Andrew,
Yeah.
wonderful. Thanks, Andrew, for your work. Wonderful. And then let's see here. Stefan says, yeah, it looks cool. Shout out for San Diego Historical Con. I think they're going to have a new location,
Absolutely.
or they're going to settle on a new location. Yes, Mo's looking forward to doing an unboxing. He does a great. Mo helps us at Compass. He does some great first look videos. Opening up the components, talking about the game. So Mo's going to get your game to definitely do a video on it. So he's probably itching to get his paws on it for sure. Kind of reminds somebody of a little summit. Well, yeah, that's sort of an interesting take. I know this is over 50, 60 years, right? So you're not solving a problem at one point in time. You're actually doing a broad-based analysis of all the factors that interplayed over, I guess, 3 generations, basically. And Tom asked a great question here. We got some great. Our viewers are great. I never have to worry about asking questions because they always come up with the best questions.
That's good.
So what was your inspiration for making this game and this topic? Great question, Tom.
My wife had been reading a lot of North Korean defector memoirs for a time. She reads a ton about a bunch of different subjects, whereas I get one subject and then read about it for 2 years and then try to make a game out of it. So we have like kind of a different reading diet. But so she had been reading a couple of these memoirs, and she had suggested that I check one of them out. I think it was, I don't remember if it was Aquariums of Pyongyang or Hyun-Seo Lee's book.
I'll be curious what the book is.
Girl with 7 Names.
Yeah.
I mentioned them all, though, in the rule book. There's like
Okay.
a little limited bibliography for that. But so I was reading these defector memoirs, and then I read an article by Maura McCammon in Kill Screen, like this gaming publication. And she had this piece about like kind of historical games, about where the perspective is. Like we have this kind of top-down view of a lot of these conflicts, which I think helps you see and model a lot of aspects of them. But then there's like this kind of more granular kind of, grounds eye view of them. And it was more like, whose history is it? And so I was trying to like think of a game idea where you'd be able to synthesize these two things. Like, what does a defector's experience look like, and how could that inform how a game models?
Right.
And so that's how you get this game that has like this generation map, which has all the anxieties of like trying to flee your country and not be found out by your neighborhood surveillance person, who represents like 200,000 informants in the DPRK. And like at the same time, you're trying to model like global opinion shifting and 6-party talks, convening, and then the breakdown of the agreed framework and like all this stuff, missile tests. And
it's crazy.
So you wanted a lot of things. But yeah, so the inspiration was just like, I could try to do all of this.
Yeah, but
stuff.
what's amazing
Sure,
but that's what's amazing. You say what you just said, Dan, is key. You can do all this stuff, but what happened was you didn't do a 40, 50-page rule booklet with all these complex interactions, like a very deep, say, coin, maybe the most complex coin game out there.
Yeah.
You didn't go very deep in complexity, make it an 8-hour, 12-hour or longer game which easily could happen with covering these, epics covering 50, 60 years. You've distilled this to like a crossover game that's playable in a few hours. But all these things are happening, but you got it distilled in this nice footprint. That I think is that to me is that's what's most impressive to me. Like everything I'm taking out of this design is if I had that kind of scope, this kind of research inspiration, I'd be thinking the game's going to be probably 3 times more complicated when it's done with all these factors in my head. And it seems like you've really found a way to meld it and distill it down to these core functions and focal points in a playable format.
That's why I love card-driven games. Like, I know they're in vogue now, but in general, I think that taking as much out of the rule book and then putting it in the player's hands just to get them up and playing a little bit faster, and then also just so they don't have to internalize all the rules, but like can rely on something else, to kind of back them up, is huge.
Let's see. Let's wrap up here. Final questions. Sorry if this was missed. A question about, I can't pronounce that. Sorry. You can do it for me. Juche, does he enter the game in any manner through cards, events, or is it simulated in a bigger way?
It's kind of the predominant philosophy behind the DPRK events that occur during the first era of the game.
The influence is there.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. Okay, here's another game. So we got Iran's coming out. Iran's on Kickstarter in January. Not by Compass, unfortunately. Darn. But but here Compass gets a chance maybe. So what about Cuba? There we go.
Martin, drum me up a reading list. I'll get right on.
Okay, Martin's going to help you out. Okay, so where we go? We can do Cuba, guys. What do you think? We can get Don. Let's get Don to do Cuba here. Not a bad idea. And let's see here. North Korea, the modern day villain. Yeah, along with Middle East groups. These are great topics to cover. A lot of I'm just interested in the educational value. I don't know much about the history. At least I know the recent history, but I don't know the deep history of say mid 50s through 80s as well. So that's what I'm most intrigued about. At least for me personally, is I don't know the history of North Korea during that time all that well. Gregory Smith, who we always like to throw design ideas out. He can represent so many events with cards too, kind of like Easy Chrome. Cards like events like Easy Chrome. There you go. Yeah, I guess so.
Pacific Tide. He knows what's up.
Pacific Tide. There you go. Little.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, I held you longer than I meant to, but we sort of did a runaway train because this was such an interesting topic. The game, it's a very topical subject given the time, and I like how you took it back. Like I said, I think at 53. I think that's when we start is 53, right? For this, for the game. So just to show it one last time for everybody, just one last look to please get your pre-order in, right? There we go. So please give this some consideration. So Dan can, we'll reward Dan with more and more royalties and more game titles. We got Cuba in the works already as of 2 minutes ago. And maybe we can see a video. I hope to see some videos of gameplay because with the way you've described the game, it seems that would be very interesting to me.
What I would like to do is like when we get our kind of production copy, like in hands, I would love to do the rule video, like just set up something. We could even like just link to it on the website because then we could set up something for like just kind of walking people through the game and then even doing the solo just so there's not questions.
That'd be great. That would be great.
Anything weird like that.
Yeah, if you could do that, that would be awesome. Well, Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on tonight. Again, we had people asking a lot of questions about No Motherland Without. The usual question is, when is it going to be released? We got that question, but after all those questions got dealt with, and we said Q1, so everybody knows it's after the new year, early.
I'm sorry about that. They wanted to know more. To stop emailing you.
That's right. They want to know more about the game, and I don't know a better way to do that than to have the designer in person share his insights into the design. So you did a awesome job with it. Somebody's asking, is there going to be a tabletop simulator module? That's something at Compass we're looking at. I just went through all these pre-orders for the catalog, which I'm going to talk about here in a moment. But yes, certainly, we're looking for ways we can support gamers. We've done a ton of Vassal stuff, but I realize that tabletop simulator, right? Simulators really, and that one too. That's the advanced version of the simulator. But simulator, tabletop simulator is growing in popularity. It has some great games on that platform already.
So I do have a simulator that I use for playtesting. for
Ah,
that. So that is something that if I've got permission, I can
yep. So
definitely
the production
let some
graphics
people poke
aren't in
around.
there yet, or do you have production graphics
It's
in?
yeah, it's got some prototypey components. The board is final, I think, and the cards are
Okay,
final.
so we can get that
Um,
done pretty quickly then, probably. Yeah.
but I replaced all the pieces with dinosaur miniatures. I hope that's not a problem for anyone.
Oh, that's horrible. Well, on that note, I think it's time to let you go. That
All
beer, now
right,
that
fair
we're really
enough.
drinking. No, it was a great job tonight. Thanks so much again. And as I was telling everybody, please look for this game on our website. You can get your pre-order place. The game's going to be shipping in a few months after the new year. Looks great. Game looks fantastic. Definitely check out the rules from the website as well. You can read through it, and we'll have a video at some point as well. But yeah, great job, Dan, tonight. Thanks so much for joining us, and I really appreciate having you on tonight. Really do.
Thank you, John. Thank you,
Hope to have you.
everybody.
Hope to have you again back soon one day
That'd be great.
when we talk about Cuba, and we'll have some
Awesome.
cigars while we do it. Okay.
I'll just be drinking rum, but it'll be fun.
All right. All right. Take care. That works too. Bye bye.
Have a good night.
Good night. Well, that was wonderful having Dan on. So really hope you guys enjoyed having Dan Bullock on. Again, we're really excited about, again, No Motherland Without. That's going to be shipping early next year. Just want to go back again, just for a moment, to our home page, just to talk about the catalog for a moment. So I think it's important to just cover that. So you'll notice from our home page now, we have the 2020 holiday catalog as a large banner. And I know I probably can't see this in my small little window here, but I hope a lot of you received the catalog in the mail in the last week or so. But obviously now we've digitized it, made it available as a PDF. So if you click on the banner, and also this was in our newsletter we sent out, we provide information about the catalog. Of course, there's a download. Just click to download the PDF. As you can see, just to give you, just to sort of recap what we've got going with the catalog is, first of all in-stock games from Compass Games, basically all in-stock games are 35% off. And they are 35% off on the website. So just like we do with our pre-orders where we cross out the list price and we show you the special pre-order price, we've done that for all our in-stock games. So you can go to the website right now, and pretty much everything you look at is going to have a crossed out list price, and you'll see, and again, it's going to be basically 35% off of list for all our games. Of course, there's exceptions. The exceptions would be if it's a pre-order title, we've already got the pre-order pricing going on, or we might have some other special pricing action already in place for a game that perhaps is just an attractive or a more attractive discount, depending on what it is. So again, we got the view of the catalog, and then if you read the text, also what's important to note is we included 20 new pre-order titles in the catalog. In other words, before the catalog was sent out, these were 20 games that nobody knew about. And this was basically my life for much of the last month, because working on the website and the pre-order pages was when we send out the catalog, it goes in the box games as well through next year. So the catalog has a long lifespan, in other words. So even though the specials run through, which is great, the specials actually run through end of August. I'm sorry, the specials run through end of January. So January 31st of 2021. So there's a big runway between now and end of January of next year. So plenty of time to get games at discounts. When the holiday season comes, hopefully for your friends. We've heard stories of people that take the catalog and they highlight or use markers to circle around the games they'd like as a family wish list for gifting from their own family. So there's all kinds of strategies involved with our catalog that we've learned about. So, but I want to mention, so we've added 20 new titles. And again, that's what I've been working on the last month. And that was our pre-order palooza, basically, because we have to have all those titles on our website, because when you get the catalog, if you can't find the game online, that's sort of confusing. And believe it or not, we actually got caught with one or two games that we thought we had the catalog fully covered with all the pre-orders, but we actually missed two games. So that's what we're going to make good on tonight. I'm doing two pre-order titles. You're going to be already aware of what those two pre-orders are, simply because they are in the catalog, and that's part of our 20 games that we've announced just in the last month alone. And the other thing just worth mentioning about this catalog before we move on to the 2 pre-orders here is that we also provide to you updated release dates for pretty much all the games on pre-order. So we do it pretty much by quarter of the year. So, or we might say early 2021, mid 2021, or late 2021. But at some time in the past, we decided, for our release schedule, we're just going to focus on 60 or 90-day window to try to keep it tight. And we haven't really talked about release dates unless it comes up in a town hall meeting with Bill Thomas. What's the date for this game for maybe 6-9 months down the road. So the nice thing about this catalog, which you can now view as a PDF, is you'll see all our games, and they'll each pretty much have release dates on them if they're a pre-order game. So I think that's important guidance. A lot of people actually contacted me asking about when's a certain game going to be out. So do check out the dates for the catalog for sure, if you would, because I think that's helpful. And what I'd like to do next is I'd like to go through the 2 new pre-order titles. So let's go ahead and do that. And by the way, in the comments section, I'm curious if anybody is in North America, just to mention about the catalog, which Bill Thomas has mentioned, just be given the weight of it and just the way the number of, we can actually literally print out, and they go in the boxes as well, as we ship the catalog to all our customers in North America, so US and Canada. We'll all get, let's count Hawaii, Alaska, all that fun stuff. But basically, the catalog is somewhat limited for the physical mailing. But again, we've got the digital version of the catalog available now as well. And thanks for I really appreciate Billy Thomas. So Bill's son is in charge of our catalog every year. And he did a Herculean effort to get all those titles. All these new titles into the catalog. I didn't think they were all going to fit at all, but he pulled it off. So thank you so much for those comments. So let's talk a little bit about the 2 new pre-orders. So I'm going to share my screen, obviously, again. So let's talk about the 2 new pre-orders that we have. And again, these are now live as of in the last hour or 2. So again, these are part of the catalog. It's just we needed to make sure we had everything covered. So many of you are familiar, I hope, with Napoleon's Eagles, our first release of this card game. It's a pure card game series, Napoleonic era. So we hope you have Napoleonic Eagles and Napoleon's Eagles and that you're enjoying it. But as you can see here, we're now going out to Napoleon Eagles 2. And we're covering the 100 days, so the Waterloo campaign. So we've got Quatre Bras, Ligny, Wavre, and Waterloo. So again, all 4 titles, and we've also got a lot of the artwork. And most importantly, I always like to get the back of the box, because the back of the box is like your mini advertisement overview of a game with the graphics mixed in. So again, it's a purely card-driven game, just like the other game. Lots of cards. In this case, we've got more than 200 full color cards included with the game, covering all the battles, and we got the battle displays that go with the card placements, etc. So I've seen some really great positive comments on Napoleon's Eagles. I know there's not a ton of pure card games out there. I know in the old days, I know Columbia did a bunch, like Dixie, etc. There were some card games done at that time, but it looks like Christopher Moeller really hit a good sweet spot with this Napoleon's Eagles series. So 100 Days is now available. Again, it's available now for online ordering. It could be a pay later, so it could be something that you don't have to worry about getting charged now. You could just commit to it just by doing the pre-order here on the page. And then we do have more components listed. So again, we've got the displays. So we've got the order of battles for the game. Again, this is very similar to the first Napoleon's Eagles game. So I just want to share with you. You can see these again, and I'll just go to full screen here so you can see them better. So we've got, again, the battlefield displays here for the wings that you can see. We've added. I've got some sample cards. So here's the leader cards, for example. So these will obviously look very familiar to you if you're familiar with the system, that you have those there. And then also, if I go here, we've got a mix of cards listed here as well. So lots of different cards, and there's over 200 cards. So just a ton of stuff in Napoleon's Eagles. So we know a lot of people are excited about that game. So we just want to make sure you're aware of that. And with that one, let's go next to our next pre-order game. And this will be number 20. So out of our pre-order palooza, we've had 20 new game titles as pre-order. So the next one is Brothers at War 1862, American Civil War. And yes, the quad series concept is alive and well. We've got your feedback loud and clear about making sure that we do quad games as much as we can. So let's take a look. We've got the 4 different, all on full-size maps. So we've got 4 battles on each individual full-size maps. We've got Antietam, we've got Fox's Gap, Mill Spring, and Valverde. And there's more information again about the game. So we've got, again, similar to before, we've got the back of the box, so you can see more information. We've got one map here with some sample counters, gives you more information about the battles at Antietam, South Mountain, Mill Springs, and Valverde. So, and the nice thing about Antietam is there's actually 4 separate scenarios for Antietam that you can actually play. So it's, and most have 2 scenarios actually. So there's a lot of scenario play out of the 4 separate games that's available. And I do have all 4 game maps. And again, these are very large size hexes because the counter size is 5/8 inch and even a larger size than that. So these are very large pieces that go on the game map, just to let you know. So these are good size maps to accommodate the extra large size counter. So if you go through here, again, you can see here's Mill Springs. We've got next, I believe, is South Mountain. And again, most of these have 2 scenarios with the exception of Antietam. Again, I believe is 4 scenarios, and then Valverde. So you can get a look at all the 4 maps. We've got the Union counter sheet, front sides. I've got the front sides only of both, so you can see the Union counter sheet as well as for the Rebel forces, the Confederates. So we've got that here for you as well. And then there is some card play, and it's mentioned in the product page that certain cards can definitely have an impact on the tactical play as the battle unfolds. Again, it's a tactical game, but there is some interaction with some cards that can be played that has an impact during the battle. So we've spotlighted for you. We took some of the cards here for you to be able to take a look at as part of that. And also we have some nice brigade displays. So these are off-map displays by the players that can be used. And again, this is just like Napoleonics, the Eagles. That is a high solitaire rated game. This is also rated high for solitaire play. So pretty much all 3 games we're talking about tonight all score very high for solitaire playability, just to let you know for everything we've covered, including Napoleon's Eagles. So here we can see one of the brigade displays we have for the game. And I thought I'd throw out the player aid card. I thought this was a very well organized sheet, just to give you more information about how nicely all the information is melded and balanced together. Pretty straightforward. I think everybody will understand pretty quickly about there's a lot of information about the game in here. I will check. I do not believe we have the rules yet available for the game as posted, but that's something I will look at. But again, I know having a quad game is something that everybody's really been asking about. And yeah, Brothers at War, Civil War, and again, it's 1862. So as you can imagine, it's going to, we look at future years of other battles. And yes, you are absolutely correct. If you look at the product page, regimental scale is absolutely correct, Ijan. So you've got that one perfectly nailed. We've got the unit scale. Also, it's also on the player aid card, I believe. It's mentioned on that player aid card that I just showed you. So yeah, Jack, we heard what you guys said about having, more quad games available. Absolutely. And so we're just really excited we could round out this pre-order palooza with Brothers at War. So we've got really just two fantastic pre-order titles that I think we're ending with, especially that they have really good solitaire playability. So we've covered a lot. We actually ran over, but I hope for No Motherland Without. I think that was just a great session with the designer, Dan Bullock. So I want to keep him on a little bit longer with you tonight. So I hope you enjoyed getting some information about this game. It's going to be out early next year. We've now got every game that's listed on the catalog is now officially available on our website and for the new pre-orders, the 20 new pre-orders, you can now you do a pledge for pay later on those if you'd like. So we've got everything out there right now. So again, it was a pleasure to be speaking with you all today. I really appreciate your questions and comments for Dan. It was very, very helpful, and obviously a shot in the arm for him to see the positive comments about his design and what went, the forethought that went into his design and the end result we're going to have here shortly. So I want to thank everybody again. We'll be on next Thursday night. We'll be on for our next town hall meeting for Bill Thomas. And as always, one of you lucky people is going to hopefully win that free game drawing at the end of the night that we always do. So if you can join us next Thursday, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the catalog. I'll have a chance to talk about maybe some other game projects going on, but we obviously want to finish up the pre-orders for tonight. So we look forward to doing some project updates in future episodes. So with that, I just want to thank everybody again for being with us. I want to thank you for all your support. I hope you're getting the catalog. Look at it online if you haven't received it yet. I hope you are finding some titles and some game systems that you're really looking forward to trying. We've got pure card games, solitaire, pure solitaire. We've got the whole mix, monster size games, quad games. We're trying to do it all, obviously. We're trying to do it all with quality throughout. So again, thanks everybody for your support. Don't forget you can reach out to us from our homepage on our website just by reaching out to me, and we'll be sure to get back to you within 24 hours when you do that. Again, everybody, I want to thank you so much for your support, and I want to wish you all a good night. Take care. I'll see you next Thursday with Bill Thomas, and it'll be great seeing you then. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.